Her sensitive nose was no longer able to detect smells, her throat hurt unbearably, and her eyes were blind. Alma tried to inhale but failed. Acrid clouds of black smoke were spreading rapidly across the rooms, crawling under the bed and beginning to seep into closets and drawers. Floating under the ceiling, the dog could see almost nothing through the smoke. With the last of her strength, blindly she followed a long-learned route to the front door. Only one thought pulsed in her head: her owner. But the door was locked. This German Shepherd was often left alone in a locked apartment while the owners were at work. Humans rarely think about an animal's emotions and mental state. They just do as they see appropriate. It was too cramped for a large dog in a two-room apartment, and the 15-minute walks outdoors 2 times a day were not enough. But the dog didn't grieve, because her friend, and most important human, the owner, lived with her. He fed Alma, took her outside, and talked to her. In general, he treated her kindly. Recently, craftsmen came to their apartment to install something on the wall. Then the stranger said that the wiring was in bad condition. The owner didn't pay any attention to it and only said he would notice if there were any problems. Now the owner was not around, and the dog had become a victim of the human's carelessness. A small crowd of people was near the building. Some of the neighbors had called the firefighters, and now a red car with flashing lights was driving toward the building. Everyone was discussing that the wiring in one of the apartments had caught fire. Dense black smoke billowed from under the doors, taking over the stairwells. Bright flames flickered in the window, swallowing the curtains and making a show of it for people with cameras. Among the fiery inferno was a dog trapped in the apartment. She was scared and in pain. The fire was burning her skin, and the only way out was blocked. By the time the firefighter broke a window on the 4th floor and jumped in, the dog was no longer moving, but lying motionless on the floor by the door, having swallowed poisonous smoke. While the others were busy extinguishing, one of the firefighters went through the rooms. He was looking for people, and in the hallway, he tripped over the animal. The guy picked up the dog and carried her out of this hell as quickly as possible. Alma was still breathing, but her fur and skin were burned. The dog's body was covered with black soot, and in some places there was no trace of the thick, beautiful fur. The skin was red and cracked. Blood oozed from the wounds, and larger lesions were already bleeding. The dog looked so awful that even the firefighters, who were used to everything, felt unwell seeing the dog. Soon, the owners of the burned apartment arrived, called by neighbors. First, they rushed into the apartment. There was nothing left, and all of the stuff was destroyed by either the fire or the water they used to extinguish the fire. The firefighter called the distraught owner to him and walked him over to the dog. Alma was barely breathing, her pulse was weak, and the hope for her recovery was fading away. "My dear, how is it possible?" the owner spoke pitifully, taking a seat beside the animal. "There is a veterinary clinic nearby. Take her there. Maybe we can save her." A blanket appeared from somewhere, and Alma was gently carried onto it. The firefighter helped the owner to load the dog into the car and provided the address of the nearest vet clinic. The owner of the animal thanked him, looking at the body of his tailed friend with pity and compassion. He did not believe in the dog's recovery, but by inertia, he did what they told him to do. After the examination, the vet admitted that there was little hope. 60% of the skin was burnt, and only a miracle could help. A full recovery was out of the question. If the pet survived, her body would be covered with deep scars for the rest of her life. And some of the scars will never be covered with fur, even with the most optimistic prognosis. But the doctor began the treatment. From then on, Alma stayed at the vet clinic. The owner paid for the medication for the day and left to deal with the apartment. The situation was terrible. No place to live, no documents or belongings. The man did what he could, asking his friends for a place to stay, borrowing money, and taking out a loan. He visited the dog every other day, but the situation remained critical. "I know that you care about Alma," his wife said one evening, "but we can't afford her treatment. It's too expensive, and we don't have any money right now. We need to get an apartment first, get back on our feet, pay off our debts, and then we can think about pets. Think about how many days it's been. She's not getting any better. She's not going to make it. We'll only be wasting money." The spouse thought about it. The wife was right. Even if she was lucky and Alma survived, she would need meticulous care and a lot of money for rehabilitation. It was an extremely difficult time in their lives, and there were problems with the restoration of documents. They had to pay a bribe. In short, they had no time to take care of a dog. So, Alma was left alone, without an owner. She longed terribly among strangers in medical uniform, smelling of medicine. The vet only shook his head at the dog's questioning glances. The owner stopped answering the phone and visiting, although there was good news for him. The animal's young body and the veterinarian's experience had done their job. The dog's life was no longer in danger, but the dog's owner turned out to be a cowardly jerk. The young firefighter who rescued the dog stopped by the veterinarian a few days later to ask about the dog's fate. When he learned that the dog was alive, he was overjoyed, but then he was informed that the animal would be placed in a dog shelter due to the owner's abandonment. The fireman looked at the mangled animal and could not imagine how she would live among dozens of other dogs. The shelter staff didn't have enough time to take care of Alma's rehabilitation. Obeying a sudden feeling, the guy decided to take the dog home. The young firefighter lived with his mother in a private house. They used to have a dog, but the dog died of old age 2 years ago. Neighbors offered to get another tailed friend, but the goodbye to the faithful dog was so painful that mother and son decided not to take any more pets. When he brought the dog with terrible wounds who couldn't open her left eye, his mother was shocked and told her son that he was out of his mind. But then, the woman began to rehabilitate the dog. She cooked special food for Shepherd and changed bandages. Alma was wary and distrustful of her new owners and their home. At first, she wouldn't let people approach her. They had to talk to her for a long time, begging her to apply healing ointment. The dog wouldn't react to food as long as anyone was in the room, and would only eat after the people left. But patience, care, and affection gradually broke through the loophole in the animal's distrust. Alma realized that they did good to her and began to trust them. Soon she approached the fireman, looked into his eyes, carefully licked his hands, lay down at his mother's feet, and growled at strangers near the fence. When the dog strengthened, her new owner bought a leash and took her to work at the fire station. The co-workers asked about the rescued animal. They asked about the recovery and were happy to see the result. The wounds on her body had already healed, but the fresh scars on her bare skin looked ugly. The fireman introduced Alma to the team. They greeted the dog so friendly and warmly that Alma immediately became friendly with the men's team. The co-workers suggested that the boy bring the animal with him to work. It wasn't every day that there were fires, and a pet could brighten up the time at work, so the shepherd dog became a part of the fire department team. The dog accompanied the cars to the gates, patiently waited outside, and greeted them with joyful barking. One day, school children came to the fire station for an excursion. They looked with interest at the fire department equipment, sat in the fire truck, put on the lifeguard uniforms, and made pictures. A group of boys noticed the mangled Alma. "Look how ugly the bald freak is. What is she doing here? Ew." The dog realized that the children were afraid of her. The boys were pointing their fingers, cursing, and saying disgusting things with a squeamish look on their faces. Alma sighed frustratedly and hurried into a dark corner, away from the yelling school children. While she had been coming to work with her owner, the dog had become accustomed to being treated well. The firefighters paid no attention to the animal's injuries. They each had their own wounds and scars left by the fire. They treated the dog as an equal. Now she felt the negativity, though she didn't realize it was caused by her appearance. The owner, seeing this, was offended. He approached the kids and told them the story of the rescue of this dog. The children curiously looked at the ugly animal. One of the boys took a cookie out of his backpack and asked permission to give Alma a treat. The other boys also began to take out a croissant, a sausage sandwich. The class teacher suggested that the firefighter and his dog come to the school and tell the children the rules of fire safety, and he gladly agreed. The boy went to the first meeting with apprehension. It was much more common to rush into a burning house than to stand in front of an audience. Alma caught his master's nervousness. She twitched her ears and snorted. Both walked immersed in their own thoughts and didn't notice anything around them. "Alma, is that you?" Suddenly, a man's voice sounded very close by. The fireman looked up at the speaker and suddenly recognized the dog's first owner, who was looking at the animal like a ghost, not believing his eyes. Alma gave the man a look, and then turned around and dragged the new owner in the other direction. The performance at the school went well. Alma served as living proof that dealing with a raging fire was impossible. The firefighter was invited to other schools, so the sheepdog became part of an information campaign that taught children about preventative measures against fires. Alma diligently helped her owner and made cute faces at the children. She quickly became a favorite character of these meetings and gained popularity. They even made her a small service tag and attached it to her collar. The school children were not afraid of the animal, whose body still bore terrible scars after the fire. The kind of cheerful Alma attracted the love of others, and the children at the meetings not only learned about safety but also understood that no injury will not spoil the inner beauty of a living creature. Want more stories? Welcome to the channel, where you'll be immersed in an atmosphere of lightness, comfort, and unpredictability. Each story is unique, intriguing, and very heartwarming. We look forward to seeing you on the channel.